Hi all, welcome to this latest edition of Off the Post. Plenty to cover as usual. The big talking point really, again over the last 7 days, is VAR and referees in general, really, for that matter. It's kind of hand in hand. Officiating's been poor across a lot of leagues, and also just the VAR use. And it brings up the debate yet again of, do we look at getting officials from maybe other sports in to do, say, the football? So you might have, say, the rugby officials, just maybe brief them if they need to know what, like, for offside. I would imagine they'll be quite comfortable in offside, handball, all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, giving an outside opinion may suddenly give it a different viewpoint, as it were. So there is that side of the coin. You've also then got to potentially factor in the attitudes of maybe other officials from other countries. So you might want to bring in, say, do you bring in like Irish, like, because Irish League's not really generally playing over like, say, certain period of the year, do you then say, do we get, say, officials from Ireland? Do we maybe get officials from Sweden, Norway? Do you just try and bring in different officials in from different countries to, in essence, do games across leagues and just say, right, this is what we'd like you to kind of officiate, really, whether it be Germany, whether it be France, whether it be England, Scotland, and so forth. And what it might do is, as a result, is give a different view, but then it also then tests maybe behaviours, I suppose, as well, because they might say, well, especially if there's not for all you know, you might have officials that have a bit of a bias towards certain teams. Maybe with having a outsider, as it were, coming in might eliminate that bias. But also at the same time, it brings up the argument of betting in sport, because there is, like, you see in certain sports, it's like tennis, like courtsiding, for example, or you could be at, say, the darts, and you're able to do like leg betting, as it were, so, or set betting, depending on maybe, say, the tournament. If it's a TV tournament, and if you're able to, in essence, get the edge on the bookies, as it were, then a lot of things like that, and that's what something like, if you're able to profit from it, then, like, what is your game? Like, what is your game, as it were? Like, if you're doing a sport, you shouldn't be trying to say profit from whatever. And, like, yes, we all like it. So quite a lot of us all like a bet, but, like, the point is, if you're a VAR official, you shouldn't be in the office saying, "Oh, there's going to be a penalty." Like, you shouldn't say to official, like, say your friends, "Oh, I'm officiating this game tonight." We'll just say it's Man City v Man United. I'm going to send off Haaland. I'm going to give a penalty for Man United. Like, you could say 3 permutations, and you'd be like, and you could go into a bookmaker and say, "Oh, I'm going to put £10,000 or £1,000 on Haaland to get sent off. There'd be a penalty for Manchester United, and we'll just say both to score." We'll just say both to score. It's going to be, and it's going to be, say, what, it'll end up being 1-1, but it's, regardless, it's, you've got those 3 permutations, and all 3 come up. It's like the fixed odds, like the fixed account games that you sometimes get seen on social media. People replying to your tweets saying, "Oh, I've got this great bet," and it's like they've apparently put like £40,000 on a bet that's like 2 games, and they're both like scored draws or whatever, and you're like, or both to score, and you're like, who's betting this game? Like, who's putting £40,000 or something on that game? Like, there's no danger, but apparently it's true. But yeah, there's been countless games across various leagues that have caused, like, controversy with their officiating, whether it be in Scotland, England, Spain. There was one game I was watching over the weekend. I think it was about 12 minutes. The second half, I think the second half was 12 minutes, and the first half was 10. And, like, even the Mallorca game on Monday night was bad. That should never have been played with the amount of rain. It was delayed by half an hour. It kept raining throughout. Ricky got sent off. I think the first red was maybe even a little bit harsh as well. for Elche, but I was like, the second half lasted about 10. The stoppage time in the second half was about 10 minutes, and I thought, what is going on here? Like, this should not be happening. Like, the VAR takes way too long, and it needs kind of nipped in the bud, really. They could do it a whole lot better, a whole lot more appealing, and especially with like other sports, it is just so fluid. Tennis, cricket, rugby, whatever other sports that ever even implement it, probably like paddle and who knows what else maybe uses it, and football just doesn't use it right. But I think it's also to try and create that, like, oh, let's create controversy. I'm like, no, there should be no need for controversy. If you're offside, is he actually offside, or is it like a shoelace that's just maybe came loose? Like, I remember there was one, and I think it was the person was deemed offside, but he wasn't offside at all. The thing that was the furthest off was like a shoelace. The shoelace had came loose. The person, I think, had stood on the shoelace by mistake, say about 4 or 5 seconds. You actually see it in the clip because they actually zoomed in it to actually validate it. And the football player's shoelace was the thing that was furthest, but even then the shoelace was still not even offside, despite coming loose. But even then, the referee gave it as like offside. Assistant linesman gave it as offside. Then they went and checked it at VAR because it was a goal, but it was like VAR was like, he's offside. I'm like, you actually could see when they were doing all the lines and all that. I'm like, how are you saying he's offside? It's like, I just could not believe what I was seeing. It was almost like where if you're watching like on, say, like YouTube, for example, listening to this on YouTube, we'll see where the left headphone is on over the football. We'll say that's the defender, and the football is maybe, say, the attacker. That was like the gap, like between the headphone and the football was literally what was like, say, the breathing space, as it were, and it might have even been a little bit more. Yet the officials were all like, "Yep, he's offside." I think the team in question, it turned out, I think in the end, the officials had it in for that team, because I think they scored. They even scored a goal, a fairly legitimate goal. I think it was like a counter, and it was like I think it was given offside with the player in his own half. It was like, now you're starting to take the mick with the rules. It's like he was in his own half. Like everyone's literally in their own, like, in that half. I'm like, you're like, you can't keep changing the rules as you go along, because that's just when you start to then question like foul play and just kind of general dubiousness, really. It's like, you just say to yourself, really, like, how can you actually get away with like this, really? Because there's no need for it. But yeah, it happens, and you just go on with it. But for everything that's, say, negative, in terms of like positives, there's like in terms of like really good stuff to kind of see in football now. It's not, I suppose the most interesting thing of the lot just now is definitely if you are someone that's following the Championship. Preston keep breaking all manner of kind of records, really. They're a strange team this year, and I mean really strange. They've played 13 games this season by the time this goes live. They've only scored 7 goals and conceded 6 from 13 games. And to kind of to emphasise that further, the highest scoring game they've had was 3-2 against Norwich, and they won that game. So it's like, you say to yourself, you've played 13 games this season and you've only conceded 6 goals, with 2 of them being in one game. So it takes a bit of doing. Like, you say to yourself, how can you only concede that amount of goals over that? Like, and what makes it, like, they've only lost 2 games. Only Burnley have lost fewer games in the division at this point of the season already, which is a bit of doing. Takes a bit of doing, regardless of what way you look at it. And like, you just scratch your head at it, really. You say to yourself, how does, if Preston were to go up because of this, then fair play, because they've came close a couple times through the playoffs, and it'd be good for football, really. That's the way I look at it. I like to see a different team. Blackburn's an interesting one, going on, talking Championship again. 7 wins, 7 losses. That's great. It's like this rate of the season, you're like, right. And what makes it funny, their last 5 games, it's loss, win, loss, win, loss. So then by that kind of theory, you would say, they're going to win next week then. At the weekend. That's what you'd assume against Middlesbrough. So you'd be like, right, they're playing Middlesbrough, they're going to win. That's the way it's going to be, brilliant. But it's little things like that. Preston's just a great little, I suppose, story to keep an eye on. Dortmund and Bayern Munich, was 2-2. That was an interesting game because of Modeste in the last kick of the game getting the equaliser. I was watching that with folk in calls, so we were basically just chilling watching it because Sky Sports like football were streaming it on their YouTube, and it just helped for the guys that were non-UK based that just wanted to watch it while we were in a call. So it was just great to watch. So you could just mute the commentary while chat away about like what was going on. From there, like, the hammering seemed to have gone a bit quiet across like Europe really now. Until you hit Wrexham and Barnet in the National League. That was the kind of like the theme like over the weekend, was like games have went a bit quiet on like the hammering front. You thought, there's no real like say 6-1s or 7-0s or whatever, and then you've seen Wrexham and Barnet and finished 7-5 to Wrexham, so you're like, fair play, like there's been 5-1s and 5-2s, but as I said, I'm meaning anything that exceeds the 5, it's been a little bit quieter, apart from like Man City last week. It's or at least for what I've been keeping an eye on for games anyways, but it's just like, the reason why I say anything over 5 is because of, it's mainly to do with like what kind of falls under, not necessarily the criteria, but it's what falls under just a scoreline. Because you do say to yourself, right, how does X team in this league suddenly win, say, 6-1 one week, but then get hammered 6-1 the next week? Because it was a game, I think it was a really small league, and the team won comfortably one week, but then got hammered the next. And I was like, well, okay, what's going on there? It's kind of made that happen. But it's like a lot of games and a lot of leagues just now are. It doesn't necessarily feel like they're all just turning the wheels. It's just who's going to be consistent, really. That's kind of really the run of it, as it were. Because, for example, if you were to talk of like Scotland last night with Hibs and Dundee United, Hibs losing 1-0 to Dundee United, who have now won back-to-back games, going from bottom of the table to second bottom. But Hibs losing there would have gave them a chance to only be 2 points behind Rangers after 10 games, which would have been a whole lot better than being 5. And especially while Celtic and Rangers would still have still had a game to play, it would have certainly made it interesting, since Hibs would have had Celtic, and it would have also gave Hibs the motivation to say, right, well, we're going into the game against Celtic only 4 points behind. We win, we're only a point behind, and then suddenly, at most, you'd be technically, after the weekend's games, you'd be like 2 points behind Rangers, simply because they would have a game in hand on you. But you'd say, well, it's not totally out the realm of impossibility, but sadly, all the missed chances and poor refereeing kind of just went against Hibs on the night. And they had talk of, for those in Scotland, there was a fan in the stands that had it was supposedly swearing, but when you actually listen to it on like the BBC Scotland highlights, if you were watching it live, well, not live, but if you were watching it on the TV at the time, you could hear clear as day that a fan was being racist. Pretty much Dundee United supporters were denying it, and I'm like, it's not hard to like hear it. It's like you can hear them being racist. It's like, but hey ho, it is what it is, and you just get on with it. Because if people are just going to say, just have that kind of behaviour, yeah, it's just the way it goes, I suppose. Because at the same time, if you're going to have that kind of denial about it, then it's just a bit disappointing, really, because like when it's heard like clear as day for us all to hear on like live it's basically is a live programme, because it's BBC Scotland showing it live for us all to see. But yeah, it's just, I suppose behaviours has just got to got on with it at the end of the day. But in terms of like when we talk about like the European games, AC Milan's game had a big talking point because of Tomori's red card. That a lot of people were like, why was that given as a red card? Official was a disgrace. But yeah, it's just people just get a bit cheesed off when it's bad officiating. Roma Betis apparently was quite bad for it as well. But in terms of like the scorelines, like a lot of them, we generally were on the money for. Like some of them did catch us by surprise as well, just because of who was playing who. Like the biggest shock of the night, really, for me, felt like Silkeborg hammering Steaua Bucharest 5-0. I would never have said that. Like Balakani beating Sivasspor 4-3 was impressive. There's no denying that. Because Sivasspor's just not firing this season in the league after such a great season last year. But it's good when unknown teams, and especially when you look at their group, anyone could still qualify because they're all on 4 points. Partizan getting a result against Cologne. Basel getting beat comfortably in the end 2-0. Fiorentina winning 3-0 against Hearts. That group remained quite open only because of RFS drawing. Because RFS have managed 2 draws. With the other 3 games that Hearts have still to play, from a Scottish football perspective, like RFS, they might get a result against that, put them to 6. The problem is Fiorentina is going to most likely win against Hearts in Florence, therefore meaning they'd be at 7 anyway. Hearts would have 2 games to play. Even if they beat RFS on match day 5, they've still got to play Besiktas on the last match day, and the first game clearly showed Hearts have got quite a bit to do to even compete against that in essence. But yeah, there's a lot. This is what I like about like match day 3 and 4. It's like reverse. It's basically reverse. It's like a good reverse fixtures. So you then do say to yourself, well, from all the results last week, you say to yourself, will there be any different this week? Like Napoli Ajax will be the interesting one because that was 6-1 for Napoli. Will that be the same again, or will it be Ajax running riot this time round? I can't see it. Sporting Marseille was 5-1. You never know. Could that be the kind of the same kettle of fish? But like, it will be certainly good to keep an eye on. Like Club Brugge in their group have just looked comfortable. They've just looked completely comfortable. Like 3 from 3. They know tonight, if as long as they don't lose, as far as the group would go, they would pretty much qualify. But I think they also kind of need to then rely on Porto Leverkusen being technically draw, but at the same time I think it overly shouldn't matter unless somebody sneaked in like second and third, as it were. But all the groups generally now look, most of them are quite signed, sealed and delivered. Like Rangers, like the Liverpool Rangers group, Napoli and Liverpool could near enough get themselves sorted tonight, and then like Ajax and Rangers would then suddenly, with 2 match days left, be trying to contend for the Europa League spot. Tottenham's group, talking of other English groups that are playing tonight, that's still very open, and we said that from the get-go. It would be a very open group, and it's kind of been that way from the get-go, really. Marseille definitely brought themselves back in it with beating Sporting. If they were to beat them again, and depending how Tottenham and Eintracht Frankfurt do, if that was to be another draw, then it gets interesting, because with 2 match days left, you're suddenly saying to yourself, well, Sporting are still at 6, Tottenham and Frankfurt are at 5, Marseille's at 6. So you then have any, like, who knows who could win it then, because Sporting would hope they can get a return victory in London against Tottenham in match day 5 that might swing it in their favour, and obviously Marseille will be kind of half hoping match day 6 will be kinder to them against Tottenham, but you never know. Long way to go still with 3 match days left for that. Obviously same for the Europa League and the Conference League. I would say Betis Roma is going to be will remain interesting again. I generally feel like everyone that kind of won last week, I get the feeling generally will win again like tomorrow night anyway. I think if anything, like scorelines may be a little bit different. Like Besiktas, I think will turn up tomorrow night against RFS. I think they'll beat them. I think they'll kind of take that hiccup last week and reverse that. I think Feyenoord will do the same against Midtjylland. 2-0 up and looking comfortable, drawing 2-2 was rather disappointing. I don't see Manchester United conceding 2 this time against Ammonia. I think they'll be a bit more organised this time. But the game for me still, the games of the night really are Betis Roma, Trabzonspor Monaco, and Anderlecht versus West Ham. Anderlecht West Ham was actually quite a good game, because I was watching quite a good chunk of that last week even, sorry. Because any of the games that were like BT, like I was just watching them, so it was good to just jump between anything that was on BT and just kind of tuning in. And like, especially if like you knew some of them were maybe on like YouTube or Premier Sports or whatever else, like channels that you get access on to, you're able to just tune in and watch. Obviously you've got other ways you can tune in and watch, depending on how you go about it. Like YouTube was surprising, it had quite a few folk were showing games like YouTube or Twitch. People were actually showing the games. People, the funniest one still, the funny ones are the ones that they sit with their pretending they've got like the controller on their screen, so they're making it look like the controller's moving on screen while the players are running. So they're trying to make it like real FIFA. It's brilliant. But no, there's definitely but in like for what I was hearing in the news like yesterday and kind of into today is if the 3 o'clock blackout could be coming out of like effect possibly very, very shortly. So like the 3 o'clock games in like England, for example, in the UK you can't watch them. So it's like, for example, using Saturday's Premier League games as an example, Sky Sports Premier League in Germany shows it. You've also got like Viaplay and a number of it, and Optus Sports in Australia show it. And then if you're in Wolves and Nottingham Forest, Premier Sports Republic of Ireland has that game. So basically they're talking that potentially say Sky or BT or like basically a British subscriber, British network as it were that you get in the UK will now start to show these games potentially. There's going to be a massive overhaul of it, which is going to be interesting because people in the UK just now will generally rely on like online Fire Sticks or boxes or anything or workarounds, or somebody's maybe somehow streaming on YouTube or Twitch or Periscope or any of these kind of like outlets that's just Zoom, whatever it may be. They're streaming it off a device and it's getting live streamed to whoever, hundreds, thousands of millions, whatever it is, because people in the UK are like, oh, I want to watch that game because they maybe put a bet on it or they just want to watch it. And it's the same with like maybe the English games is like in the lower divisions, like to kind of re-emphasise it further, Bristol City and Millwall is on like BN. Like I think for like UK wise, BN subscriptions I don't think we really can get unless you have a Fire Stick or a try to think like the boxes that give you like international TV, because I think you'd have to add it in that way, because I don't think the Sky boxes, I believe, or Virgin or whoever else that does TV subscriptions that give you a TV box, I don't think any of them take BN, I think. But even then, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how it plays out, because then, if I'm honest, does this then mean, say, the football clubs then can demand more money? So the English teams might say, well, you pay us, say, £1 billion a season. That's now going to be, or say for the Premier League, it's now maybe £2 billion. Say for the Championship, League 1, League 2, it might, we maybe say, we'll just say for EFL, so the 3 divisions, it's maybe say £1 billion a season for the 3 divisions. Highly doubt it's that much, but we'll just say for talking sake, just to kind of do all that, or maybe even that might be even free, might even be 3 seasons. But mind, it's like £180 million to get promoted, so it could be serious money regardless. But they might say, oh, it's now worth £2 billion, and same with like say Scotland, and they might now say, well, if BBC want to show it, like BBC Scotland, they're now going to have to pay this to show it, or same for Sky. So if in Scottish football's case, with them just renewing the TV deal, they might now need to re-renew it, because they might say, well, we need to sit down and look over this, because this is what you were going to give us, this is what we were happy with, now we need to look at it differently, because we want to show every game, we want to show all the 3 o'clock kickoffs, even though there might be, say, 1 at 12:30 on a Saturday, maybe 1 on a Sunday, because obviously Hearts just now have to play on a Sunday because it's a Thursdays when they play. The rest of the games that play on a Saturday, obviously the other 4 games in the division in the Premier League, they have we'd like that all on the telly. and then your problem is like who gets what for Sky, BT, etc. Because then and BBC they'll all be competing with each other. Same with Premier Sports. Amazon might get involved, so then they'll say, well, we want in as well, and then it brings the whole argument again from a TV deals perspective of, does one network just have everything? So like, does say Amazon say, right, we're going to have the entire TV deal, we're going to put up a subscription service that is, say, £10 a month for football fans, and I'm just saying £10 as an example, just kind of making it realistic, and that's just for football, by the way. So you say £10 a month and they can watch all the football they want. So on a Saturday they might say, right, I want to, they might get up at say 7 o'clock in the morning, they want to watch one of the Australian games, they say, right, there's 2 Australian games in the morning, I'll watch them. That way by the time it comes in at about say lunchtime, they can watch the mix of either second Bundesliga, they could watch the like Turkish League or the Ukrainian League, could get a half-12 Premier League game in England. Depending how they want to shape it, they might or like the game in League 2, like, or Championship. What you basically end up finding is when you've timed it all, you say, well, 7 o'clock in the morning is my first game, and you've got it scheduled so that way you know by the time you've watched, you might get the first half of one game that you're timed for the English games. You've then got the 3 o'clock, you've got a 5:30, you've then got maybe the 7 o'clock games, the 8 o'clocks. Then depending on who's like the last kind of like leagues of the night, which is usually the MLS, so you might see, oh, the MLS maybe is, because of how it is just now though, it's because it's in the playoffs, they're a slightly earlier finish, but that's how you'd work it all out. You might have like your last game of the night is like a 10 o'clock game, and then you'd maybe do the same on a Saturday. You say, oh, I've got you might be up early, so you might end up having, because of how the A-League's working on the Sunday, this Sunday coming, it's 3am, 5am, 7am, so you might have, oh, I've got to catch the 5 o'clock game, so you've got that, 7 o'clock, and then you say to yourself, well, what do I do in between, say, 9 and 11? You then probably scout around all the leagues around the world and say, oh, there's a or South Korean, and you can watch those games, so that way you're covered. And that's how people, it ends up people just basically sitting in, oh, it sounds nasty, that they're sitting in their house all day watching football from first light, or not even first light, when it's pitch black, till basically the time they go to their bed, or even actually before them, because they might, depending if they watch like the Argentinian League or the Brazilian League, and it's like, you never know how it all shapes up, because it depends on people's behaviours, and each their own really at the end of the day, because like football, TV, like depending on what you're doing, especially if you're, say, depending on what your schedule is in the day, you might want to have, especially say on a Sunday, you might say, oh, I'm going to go for a run, but you maybe don't want like music, but because you're up early and going a run, maybe it's like say an hour and a half run, and if it is 7 o'clock in the morning, having like say the Australian game while you're running, just having the commentary on, it's just a nice change of pace to the music, so you can get a wee bit, because maybe if there's key moments in the game, or it might be a 3-3 game for example, and because of the goals, the energies maybe helps you with running a wee bit quicker. And then depending on what like your day is, if you're maybe preparing like your lunch, if you're trying to do a bit of cooking for like maybe say having a fry up, if you've maybe either got a TV or radio, whatever, or phone, whatever it might be, device to hand in the kitchen, you might want to have that next game on, just like a lot of things like that. And that's how people forget, like that's how sometimes your timing when you're watching football works. You're not really static, you're kind of like being proactive, but you're just wanting something as whether it be his background or just something to watch. So, and that's sometimes a lot of us is because it's quite good just to have. If I'm doing my bits and bobs, I'll do that. It just keeps me going during the day to keep us all going, because you never know what your schedule may be like. But at the moment, obviously next week there's no European games because it's like a 2-week break this time round. So keep that one in mind. No European fixtures next week, as in like Champions League, Europa League, Conference League. But yeah, there's definitely there's this week coming. There is a lot of derbies across a lot of leagues, and that's kind of like the theme. Kind of the theme generally most weeks nowadays, really. Wherever you go, I think a lot of it is because. Like in England, in the Premier League, a lot of it in the Premier League, there's like so many teams in London. Same with like the Championship, Germany and France. A lot of that is just old rivalries that's just been going for forever. Same with Italy, like city derbies and regions. So it'll be interesting to see how it all kind of plays out, really. And come. In essence, between now and next week, who's turning up, who's not turning up, all that kind of good stuff. But we'll take it from there and see how it progresses. Let me know, folks, so how your team's performing this season, if they're doing well, bad, indifferent, all that kind of good stuff. Be interesting to see how tables kind of shape up over this week, because obviously between now and the World Cup, it'll be interesting to see who sits where, really. And obviously when it comes to the World Cup, who because of they've only had to play maybe say a third of the season, who it might even be pushed nearly half by that point, who's adapted quite well, in essence, like for when it comes back, because some teams might have lots of players at the World Cup, some teams might have very few. Some teams might be taking like holidays. Some teams might just try and do little tournaments with other teams, or just games, bounce games. But we'll see how it goes though. Let me know, as I said, your thoughts on all that as well. I'll probably do like a proper World Cup edition nearer the actual World Cup. Like maybe put like an hour or two in it. Just really hammer home, really, just kind of talk about everything to do with the World Cup as well. So have a good one, folks. Take it easy, all. Thanks for listening, and I will catch you all later.